I think you all know who we have with us. We have Reese Witherspoon.
Hi, everybody.
We also have Sarah Harden, who runs Hello Sunshine. I'm going to jump into it so we maximize our time. I know that most people know who you are, of course, in this room. You were an Academy Award-winning actor, congratulations, for your role June Carter Cash in Walk the Line.
Yes.
You were nominated for an Academy Award for Wild, both films I saw that were great.
Thanks, Mark.
I hope. I'm a good critic. And you won awards for the Golden Globes and Emmys for Big Little Lies. Did we see Big Little Lies? Amazing. How creepy was Meryl Streep?
In real life or on the show?
On the show. Well.
On the show.
On the show.
In real life, she's really cute and sweet.
But I did watch your acceptance speech, and in it you said you wanted to bring women to the front of their own stories.
Yes.
So I want to start here. Talk a little bit about what you're trying to achieve with that, and also if you could juxtapose it with what Saturday Night Live parodied as this Oscar season being about white male aggression.
Yeah, I saw that. That was fun. Okay, well, part of the reason I've been in the movie business for 30 years now. This will be my 30th year this year, y'all. Oh, God. So I started when I was 14, and frequently growing up, I was the only woman on a movie set. And then as I got older, it just, that narrative just kept perpetuating. I was always sort of the only woman there. I didn't really get to meet any of my actress peers because there were so few parts for women. You were usually the only woman in a movie. And probably around the time I was 33, our whole business kind of shifted in 2008, 2009, around the writer's strike, that writer's strike that really affected our business. When the business came back, they weren't developing any movies in the $40 million range, $30 to $40 million. So that really became clear they weren't making any movies for women. We kind of lived, that's where comedies lived, that's where the heartfelt dramas lived. So I just remember getting this really crappy script, and it was two women fighting over this male lead who was acting like an idiot. And both the parts were offensive, and there were tons of boob jokes. And I called my agent, I said, I'm not doing this, I'm not interested, I don't. And she said, every actress in Hollywood wants these parts. And they got an Oscar winner to play one of them, in fact. And I thought, well, that's it, I've had enough. I've had enough of what the pipeline is. Nobody's developing for women, nobody's developing movies that put women at the center of the story, and I'm just gonna spend my own money. And so I self-funded a company, because I also didn't want to exist within a studio system that wouldn't be making films that had women at the center of them. So that's where it kind of began for me.
Well, it turns out at least 50% of the population watching the films are women, so stands to reason you have some customers to target.
Also, women consume more media. I mean, we were just talking in the car. There was a recent study in Axios, and they said, women are watching 76 hours of television every week as compared to 60 hours a week for men. And so if you just think about that, women are the largest captured consumer audience in the world. Their numbers skew higher on social media, on streaming platforms. And it's definitely an interesting phenomenon that they're still primarily making content with men at the center when women are actually living on those platforms more.
Do you have any commentary or thoughts of why this Oscar season, in the era where we thought women protagonists were going to play a bigger role?
How much time do you have?
25 minutes, 28 seconds.
Okay. I think we're living in old systems.
Yeah.
Hollywood has to evolve. We have to start thinking of new structures of voting systems. We have to have, someone suggested maybe a jury system might be a more fair way of knowing that people actually watch the films and are voting accordingly. More diverse, balanced voting pools. I think these institutions are primarily white and male, and that's not reflective of our society. And so you're not seeing you're not seeing the results that reflect the world we live in.
One of the things we're trying to address in our industry in venture capital is to really get more women at the heart of entrepreneurship. You also have to have more women writing checks and funding things, and people, we were talking about Kirsten Green backstage, people like that who...
Kirsten believed in me from the beginning when I started becoming an entrepreneur. Also, you know, I had the money to self-fund a company. I had a long, very lucrative career, but there's many women who are not in that position to start their own media company.
And you grew up in Nashville?
Yes.
Both of your parents were doctors, as I understand. Pretty educated. You got into Stanford. You dropped out, which already earned you a lot of esteem in this room.
I dropped out after freshman year. I know.
But talk about the role that education and your parents' influence has played in your business career and how you think about business.
My parents were not business people, and I have really... It's been a real interesting journey for me, financially and as a businesswoman, to navigate it by myself, literally just asking people like this wonderful woman who's my CEO, what exactly does that mean that you're saying? Like, I have no problems saying, I remember I started a retail company 3 years ago, and Kirsten Green was ROI this and EBITDA that, and I was like, I'm sorry, what is ROI? What is EBITDA? And she took the time to actually explain everything to me. So I've had my own journey. You know, I literally knew nothing when I came to Hollywood. I didn't understand how films made money. I didn't understand the revenue structure. And I say to young people all the time, understand how your business makes money, how they lose money, how you can be an asset, how you can help create more revenue for yourself, for the company. And I learned literally just by asking a lot of questions.
So let's move on to Hello Sunshine.
Okay.
You started in 2016.
Yes.
And your stated mission is storytelling that changes the narrative for women. So I guess you were frustrated with the past and said, I'm going to create a company to solve the problem that I believe I have, which is what we tell people how all great entrepreneurs start, is solving their own problem that they uniquely understand. We have the CEO, Sarah Harden, I think great friend of many people in this room. She's ex-Fox and Chernin Group, president of Otter Media, Harvard Business School alum, power exec. How did you meet her? How did you select her? Why was she the right person for the role?
Oh my gosh, Sarah. I'm so lucky I have Sarah in my life, and that she believed in this idea. I had self-funded my company for probably 5 years, wasn't turning a very big profit. I had produced Wild, Gone Girl, and Big Little Lies, and it still wasn't generating a lot of revenue. And so myself and my husband and my business partner, Seth Rodsky, all decided we wanted to try a digital venture where we were going to be on multiple platforms. So we took it to Chernin, and we had one other competitive offer at a different platform. And so we went into Chernin, we had this great meeting, and I said, well, this is amazing, but are there any women who work here? Because I'm going to be talking about female content, and I just don't want to be talking in an echo chamber, and you guys telling me like you don't understand what I'm doing. And they were like, oh my God, we have the most amazing woman. She's traveling right now. So 2 days later, I sat with Sarah and I had the greatest meeting where we just really, she has built so many digital businesses for the Chernin Group and Otter Media, and this was the first to be focused on women.
And I mean, it's funny, I remember that we had brunch on a Sunday, and Mark, some of the things you're talking about here is exactly what we talked about in the room. And I think it was the frustration and the white space. And I think, you know, Reese had a very fully formed vision of what that was. And it started with this lack of representation. And, you know, I think it was an interesting time 3 or 4 years ago, and it was prior to the Me Too and Time's Up movements. I think real shifts in the media business. And I think you know, we had spent a lot of time at Otter looking at these next great media brands we were looking to build. Crunchyroll, Rooster Teeth, they were more male-centric brands. And so we'd spent time saying, how do we serve female consumers? And I think the opportunity we met with Reese to say, you know what, we could start this really on the back of Reese's 20-year, 25-year career, but architect this company for the next 10 years of media. And I think that's what we talked about, and very much talked around the problems that we wanted to solve.
What is it? Is it in your mind, is it a media production company? Do you have any aspirations to have tech as your underpinning?
It's both, very much. And we set an intention 3 years ago, and we're still early on in delivering against that, which was, and I think, when we looked and said, where would you have to be to build a company that's architected for the next 20 years? It was, we have to build a direct-to-consumer brand. We have to have connection with our audience, but we're going to put a premium storytelling studio at the front of it. Our first hire was Lauren Levy-Newstead, our first senior hire, who runs our scripted business and has done an incredible job as we built this company. But if you look at the marketplace, we're in the most crowded media marketplace. And, even on streaming platforms with premium shows, they face challenges in getting audiences to show up for their media. And so we said, we're going to take responsibility for not only creating great storytelling, but we're going to take responsibility for helping audiences show up to those platforms. And so, under the company, we manage Reese's socials. She's got an incredibly powerful social following of 21 million followers. And we started out building we want to do a brand of influence under 2 sets of handles: Reese's Book Club, which is sort of a curatorial voice for our company, and we can talk more about books, and then under Hello Sunshine. But that takes a while to build, and we said we're going to build an audience that loves us. And as we build this company over 10, 15 years, we're then going to bring those audiences to our premium storytelling. And that was kind of the part of the company. And then the other part, which was very central, and I really remember it, was, I think when we sat with Reese, the first time she said, this company's not about me, right? It was about solving industry problems and providing a company that we could bring voices into storytelling that have been structurally marginalized and isolated from Hollywood. And when you talk about our population, people of color, women, LGBTQ folks, it is like nuts when you look at the composition of who has power in the media industry. And that was the conversation we had the first time.
And how few women and people of color and LGBTQ people have their own media companies.
Yeah. Talking about power, how do you guys share power? I mean, that's a real dilemma in a business.
Oh, that's a really good question. Somebody asked me that the other day.
Thank you, Reese.
Mark.
Just returning commercial.
I think we have such an interesting revolving structure of leadership.
Yeah.
There's no ego in any of it. We all carry water in the same way. So whether you talk about the senior members of our team, everyone's so happy to let another person lead, but also steps up exactly when they need to. So it's not a traditional structure that I've seen in any company I've ever been inside of or worked for. It's a really beautiful thing, actually, to see the way a group of really strong women lead.
And that's been really intentional. I was thinking the other day, actually, and it depends a little on when we're in production. I mean, Reese she literally works harder than anyone I know. So whether it's texts at 5:30 in the morning there's a constant conversation, but we really have been intentional. We talk a lot about the strategic choices, and from the start, we didn't start the company with a lot of capital. It was, we're going to be defined by our choices. And so that's what we spend a lot of time with. But Reese works directly with our exec team. And, we said, let's build a company that we would have all loved to have worked in the last 20 years. We have an amazing exec team. They're building big businesses, and so Reese works directly with each of them.
It's all women, right?
Well, right now, we talk about, it's not not the company isn't, our exec team of 5. Yeah.
I think so.
We're very intentional, and we talk a lot about this. The opposite of a patriarchy is not a matriarchy, it's equality, and we're really trying to build a company that reflects that internally. But Reese works on every part of our content business with Lauren on our scripted business, with Cynthia on our unscripted business, with our kids and animation business. So whether it's writers, producers, and so we've tried to set up a structure that really empowers our team. And we talk a lot about what we want to do as a company, but we spend a lot of time also about the how and how we want to do it. And it's been the best part is I think sometimes being a CEO is really can be lonely. And I mean Reese's judgment, everything from the smallest things to the biggest things, that's having someone alongside to just build the company with. That's been a real gift.
Reese, you talked about when you started a business and were dealing with Kirsten and using EBITDA and ROI and stuff, that was all new to you.
Yeah.
What about
And now I just throw it around. Yeah. Like at the gym, I'm like, there's not enough ROI on that machine. No, I don't.
What about in terms of data or technology? Like if I think about
Oh, I love data.
I do. I love data so much.
Do you use it in interesting ways? Like, does it inform like which stories you're going to tell or which audience?
Well, I don't use it for evil.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just watched that documentary, The Great Hack, and I'm like, oh, data. But no, I love data. It's so helpful.
She does.
I
really
love
loves
data.
data.
I'm like, tell me, what's the data on that? Did that perform well? Because we can really cater content to be much more specific. Not that it controls every decision we make, but we're not, throwing a spaghetti at a wall and thinking, oh, this strategy is going to work. We had no idea 5, 10, 7 years ago what was working or why. And I think the ability to micro-target circuit groups or geo-target groups is really invaluable. And I wish I had more data. Like, it's really, we talk about it all the time.
Yep.
The amount of data that's shared is it's not really helpful sometimes because companies obviously have their own strategies, but I think create more and be more effective if I knew exactly what audiences were looking for.
Yeah.
Talking about audience.
Yeah.
What do you see as your audience? Is it, because I know you have female protagonist as one of your themes, are you looking for powerful female protagonists for a female audience, or do you aspire to serve everybody and make women, like how do you think about audience, and is it age and?
Oh, that's a good question. We start with story.
Yeah.
So it really began with this book club that started as just Reese's book club in her brain, and the first 2 books that I optioned were Wild and Gone Girl, and before we ever got to screen with either one of them, they both hit the New York Times bestseller list as a #1, nonfiction and fiction, and I was like, holy shit! Now I got to make good movies. But then it just sort of became this great relationship that we had with authors, whether it was Leanne Moriarty in Big Little Lies, and then most recently we optioned Celeste Ng's book, Little Fires Everywhere. And that started as just a book club pick that we read in galleys.
Yeah.
Chose it for the book club. I did a live Facebook streaming with Celeste in our startup office.
I remember that because the sound wasn't working.
The
It was a very
audio
painful
went
day.
out. It was a disaster, but the audience really grew with us. And then we decided to develop it and attached Kerry Washington as our partner in Simpson Street, her company. And now it's coming out on Hulu next month. But it's been this really amazing 2.5-year journey that our audience has gone on, watching us pick it as a book, decide to develop it, build the sets, cast the characters. And it's this 360-degree experience that you can go on as an audience member, that people are really invested in that process as well. And it kind of takes people behind the scenes too and shows you how we make these things.
What led you to want to get involved with book clubs and book selection? Was that?
I just have always read all my life, ever since I was little, and I didn't realize how much I was reading until probably 2008 and 2009 when all the scripts were really bad, and I was complaining about it to my husband, and I was like, I went on this studio tour around to every single studio head, there were only 7 at the time, and I said, what are you developing for women? And only one studio was developing something for a woman, and it was a woman, and she actually said, we already have a movie with a woman starring this year, we can't make 2. And so I went home and I was complaining to my husband, and he's like, babe, you read more books than anyone I know, why don't you just option some of these books? And I said, I do? He's like, yes, you read like a crazy amount of books. So that was sort of a light bulb moment for me, and then I just started reading things in galleys instead of reading them at the bookstore.
I mean, and I think that interest, and when we started the company was, I think we observed it takes a while to get your creative, especially the premium stories that we are focused on. It can take a year or 2 to get those, but we Reese was already posting photos of Instagram, and so one of the first things we did was just tentpole the book club, pick a book in the first week of every month. Because I think you need, if you're building, trying to build an authentic community, you have a curatorial voice for your brand, and it was so authentically from Reese, and that is what we have built the company around. And I think now you see Reese's book club. I mean, we are reliably putting every book on the New York Times bestseller list. Our January book, Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid, it's so beautiful, a debut author. And so this isn't about just picking authors who are well known. And I think those first 2 or 3 years was really just about building that influence. And Reese really picks the books. I get asked all the time. I read a lot of the books. We talk about them a lot. And that sits at the center of everything we do. And there's no better example than Little Fires Everywhere.
Interestingly,
yeah,
we first met
That's
because
true.
you were in a book club with my wife.
Yeah, best book club, because we had a rule that no book could be over 100 pages. It was the itty bitty book club.
And they had a rule that Mark wasn't allowed to be in the house.
Karen Norton was in that book club as well. Yeah.
Is it
But
like...
I do think people are looking for community.
Yes.
You know, in this world that's just proliferated with things and content and ideas, curation is so important. Unique voices, thoughtful, intelligent selection is really important. Also, knowing when people want to see a romantic comedy or just read a light book at Christmas. We really listen to the feedback from our audience and try to sort of pivot around their taste as well, because they have their own set of tastes.
I wonder, is it, and the answer could just be no if I have it wrong, but it seems like a book club can be a real wedge for you in the sense that, first of all, your presence and your audience and now tech and marketing dollars enable you to help books blow up in the first place, and probably plays some role in people wanting to feed into your book club that allows you to option their work in the first place, or am I overthinking?
Yeah, I mean, you just, that is the strategy that we've built the company around. And really, when you look at what Reese had done, it's not, to be able to say to an author, the work with Wild and Gone Girl and Big Little Lies, the care to launch those, it means so much to the authors and those stories. So you build a reputation around that, and then our goal is to do a few things really well and continue to build that reputation
And it's
around
been
books.
about a year that you've been on board? How long has it been?
No, from the start, I was
2.5
just
years,
quiet.
3 years?
Yeah, it was just
When did you go
quietly
full-time?
at the
Oh, I
start.
didn't-
About two and a half
God,
years ago.
time
I don't
flies.
know. I had 9 months where I was doing double duty, but
Yeah.
that was a bad year.
So now
She was doing both jobs.
Yeah.
we won't tell Peter. So you were at this for 2.5 years. You know, we're kind of hitting now a big moment for your company. Like, what does the next year or two look like? Where are you taking things?
Do you want to talk about the TV side of the business?
It's really exciting.
we've
We
got
have
a
a
big-
lot of
yeah.
exciting stuff happening this year. Well, we have Little Fires coming out March 18th on Hulu.
It's so
Set your
good.
TiVo. No, check your Hulu. Sign up for Hulu. I don't know. I do know. Sign up for Hulu. And then we have second season of Morning Show
Going into production.
going into production. Did y'all see the Morning Show? So excited. We have a wonderful project with Zoe Saldana, who's sitting right here right now, called From Scratch, that we're going to be doing at Netflix this year.
She's also talking later,
She's
so
gonna
make sure to
speaking
come
later,
see Zoe.
ask her lots of
Yeah.
questions about that. We have the best partners in the world. Daisy Jones
Daisy Jones and the Six
at
that-
Amazon.
That we go into production in.
She's also based on a
in
book.
April, and I think, we're really building our unscripted and kids and animation business this year as
Not
well.
Animation.
Kids, yeah. Well, we can't. It's not
Can't say
announced.
it?
No.
Damn it.
You can
No, we're-
announce it, right?
No, we've got
so
a kids
excited.
and animation division. We've sold our first show.
We're going to make cartoons.
I mean, and and we're really excited about bringing, female protagonists in our animation, but really encouraging co-viewing among families with that. And that is at the heart of the business. We're trying to build a media company in the most capital light way, where we get to kind of build franchise IP around using our influence to do it. And then, I think Reese's Book Club is a huge strategic initiative this year. I think we spent the first 2 or 3 years building influence. We haven't traded at 1.5 million followers, all organic. We haven't traded $1 of that influence yet. And I think the goal for us is to build that into a more fully fledged membership community events, which we've started prototyping that last year, but we're excited about that. And when you talk about whether we're a technology company, that's the piece that takes us into building a sort of a deeper DTC stack to sort of control our relationship with a set of consumers.
DTC means direct to consumer.
Appreciate that.
Oh my God, Reese, I love you.
I'm going to put a lot of USG on our user-generated content.
UGC.
UGC. I knew that.
We don't do any user-generated content.
UGC.
Yeah.
Stepping back from business just a bit, if it's okay, we had J.J. Abrams and Katie McGrath talking earlier about Time's Up, about that initiative.
Oh, yeah.
In my research, trying to read as much as I could about the topic, so many female actresses and leaders in the industry credit you with pushing them to become involved with Time's Up.
They do?
Yes. Reading about it, well, what
I see a few of them out here.
Talk a little bit about your involvement, where you see the movement, how did it get started, and is it having any impact?
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. And I would say there isn't one person to point to. It's the most inclusive group of thought leaders and people who are really deeply invested in leaving our business a better place than the way they found it.
Yeah.
Creating safer work environments, more inclusive, more diverse work environments, and really opening the door to new talent. So there's been an incredible amount of growth in Time's Up. Tina Chen is now running Time's Up, which has been amazing. And not only have they raised $22 million for the Legal Defense Fund to help people defend cases throughout the country, harassment cases within their own work environments. But they are doing so much even with the presidential debates. They've partnered with Fortune magazine to really diversify the questions. Like, when are we going to talk about paid family leave? When are we going to talk about the gender pay gap? You know, really being thoughtful about who are the critics that are getting to weigh in on movies and television shows. They sort of did a lot of research. My colleague Brie Larson was really spearheading this initiative to make sure there were women and people of color who were reviewing movies and television shows, because primarily it's probably 80% white men, I think we read earlier today, and not every television show is made for that demo. So when you diversify the critics group, you get a more fair and balanced idea of what movies you want to see. Because in this world where algorithms choose for you to, which is a whole other conversation that I hope maybe Ted will talk about algorithms next, Ted. I think it's really important that we be thoughtful about tech and having gender balance in that and diversity, because we're building entire systems that are excluding groups of people. And that's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
My friend Mauricio Mota, who's in the room, he produced a show with his wife for Hulu called East Los High.
Yes.
Telling stories.
Also, Katie worked with us producing Shine On with Reese.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're great. And he was telling me that to advocate for issues, to get people aware of change, you need to get to showrunners, you need to get ideas written into shows so that we can project, issues in a way that's balanced and received by an audience. If you think about what you've talked about earlier, people of color, women, LGBTQ, what do we have to do to push the industry to the next level? I know Zoe and Eva will be talking about that later. What do we have to do to really make an impact?
Support, financial support is really important. Fund media companies owned by other groups of people. I think the kind of, broad support that we can give, the amount of people in this room, just being aware too. I think there's so much in having conversations within your company, and that's what I think Time's Up is going to be really helpful in providing toolkits and the availability to have more, what am I trying to say? Advisory.
Yeah. And I think
within companies.
We've talked about this. At the end of the day, this is a conversation about power. And, it's all of these things are about authorship and authentic authorship. And it is great business. It's the white space we started our company around, which is like you've got an audience that reflects, if you look at the economic power, and you cannot exclude these voices in this marketplace from the authorship, and that means writers' rooms, boardrooms. If you do, you're mortgaging your future as a company, and I think that's power about it. So what it takes people with power to bring other people into that power dynamic at every level.
And one of the things I'm excited about is Liz Murdoch, who also want to tell a story about women, is financing a company and women to create more stories about women. So you got to get the money behind it. But
exactly.
Please give a huge thank you to Reese Witherspoon, Sarah Harden for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.